Welcome to Adeptus On-Air, the show where we examine how individuals and companies make decisions that drive their business and personal success. Each week, we connect with notable professionals who pull back the curtain on the industries that Adeptus has been on the cutting edge of for the last 30 years, including music, sports, and entertainment, as well as new emerging markets.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Adeptus On-Air. I am joined today by Gina Scarpa, a professional voice actor, female entrepreneur, competitive gamer, who brings positivity to everything she does to help others achieve their goals and dreams. She spent decades in radio broadcasting and voice acting, and is proud to have voiced national TV and radio commercials, video game characters, and corporate content for some of the biggest brands in the country. She is also the founder, owner, and creative director of Positive Voice Studios, which provides coaching and educational programming for children, teens, and rising adult voice actors. Gina, welcome and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Sometimes my bio still catches me off guard. I'm like, wow, that's me.
Wow, I sound pretty cool, don't I?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I've done a lot.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here. And the most important thing I need to know when you talk about video game characters is, I've had a crush on Miss Pac-Man for like years. So have you ever met her and what she's like?
They need to give her a voice, right?
No.
Didn't they have like the 80s TV show that was Pac-Man?
They might have.
They did. They did. Yeah, I also loved Miss Pac-Man growing up. And whenever we would go to the arcade or there were some fast food restaurants in the area that had just a couple of games, I always went for Miss Pac-Man.
Well, that was the thing when as a kid, I remember going for dinner and I always want to pick certain places to go with the family because I knew they had a Miss Pac-Man machine.
Yes. And you got to get the high score and you got to put your initials in and achieve greatness in the 80s. You know what I mean?
It was nothing greater than putting your initials in. That was like the coolest
My gosh.
thing.
It was so exciting.
That was the coolest thing ever. But welcome aboard. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks for having me.
Give me like a 2-minute spiel how you got to where you are now in your career, because it seems like, you've done a lot. So how are we where we are today?
It's sort of accidental, honestly. I grew up doing theater. My parents have been married for almost 50 years, and they were theater directors until their retirement in 2019. So my sister and I grew up as theater kids, and I always had kind of stage fright. I didn't love being in front of a crowd, but I liked performing. And so when I got out of high school, I discovered radio. There was an ad in the paper. I sound like such a boomer. There was an ad in the paper, and I sent a cassette tape of myself to a station, and they didn't answer me, so I drove myself over there with my 15-year-old sister at the time and asked to talk to the program director. And he met with me and he said, you sound like you made that in a tin can, but you have a decent voice and I can teach you how to do this. So I became an intern at KC 101 in New Haven, Connecticut. I ended up on the air in the first 6 months. I ended up on the radio for almost 10 years in Connecticut and the Poughkeepsie area of New York. And when I left radio, I went to entertainment reporting, and I was writing about television shows and interviewing people from different TV shows. Like, I interviewed Bryan Cranston right as Breaking Bad was starting. I interviewed like the cast of General Hospital, Prison Break. So for like kind of like in the early 2000s or whatever.
Sure.
But that kind of transitioned over to reality TV. I don't really know how, but I ended up becoming a reality TV reporter, editor-in-chief of 2 sites, hosted my own podcast about reality TV. And in 2014, I started doing voiceover on the side just because I kind of missed radio. And that ended up becoming a full-time career in the pandemic just out of necessity. And I literally can't tell you. I went full-time in 2020 and things just took off, and I never meant to be here, but it's probably the greatest blessing in my life ever, other than my son, who just turned 26.
Wow, 26. Okay, excellent. Yeah,
Right?
I have a 22 or almost 22 and a 17. She'll yell at me if she listens to this. I said 22. I got a month to go. So going back to the reality things you covered. So what were some of your favorite reality shows that you had covered?
The CBS reality shows were some of my favorites, like Survivor, The Amazing Race, and Big Brother. I loved it. I got to interview so many people from those seasons, and I really loved that. I was also a sucker for The Real World and The Challenge on MTV. I think it's just me being in high school in the 90s, and just, when MTV came out with The Real World and Road Rules, I was just like fascinated by it. So I've interviewed a lot of the all-stars that are still on the challenge, and really memorable real world guests and things like that. So I would say those are my favorites, but I've had some really great experiences reporting for reality TV. I went to Fashion Week in New York for the Project Runway finale, and Heidi Klum and Tim Gunn and Jennifer Lopez was there. It was crazy.
Wow.
And a
well,
bunch
if you
of
listen
other
to my
really
first
cool things.
podcast, you're like, my 12th or 13th or something like that. My first podcast was with a name that you'll know then.
What?
Big Brother All-Star champ. Cody Calfiore was my first.
Cody! I've interviewed Cody and his brother. Cody is so nice.
Oh, don't even get me started on his brother. Yes.
Well, you know
I work with both Cody and Paulie. Have for a long time.
I interviewed Paulie not that long ago, maybe like a year and a half ago, and I interviewed Cody twice, and during All Stars, he played a flawless season. I mean, he was just so good. I was like, there's no way he's not going to win, right? But yeah, what a great guy, and it was so awesome to see him win. I mean, I interviewed him years ago, but I watched that season that he won. I still watch it every summer, and I was like, one of the best of all time.
Long story short, I told you, see, we get off topic at times.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had bought a beach house, and he was my realtor. And it was right when COVID started. So I remember we're at the house, and he pulls me outside. He goes, listen, don't say anything to anyone. But I think I'm going on. And I'm leaving 3 days before you're closing. So we had to make all these contingency plans. And so it turns out it got delayed because of COVID a couple of weeks. But we had to, I'm not allowed to tell anyone, please don't tell your family and stuff like that.
Yeah, literally.
But literally, we were able to squeeze in the closing. Yeah, we got the closing.
Wow, what a small world.
Like a week before he left. Yeah, so CBS Realities is something we definitely grew up in our, my kids grew up watching it every year. And
yes.
That's actually one of the shows that we actually used to always watch together. So,
yes.
So which is kind of nice.
I love that.
Yeah, so talk to me. So the voiceover acting, so how does it work? How are you getting your gigs? You have an agent, or is now your name just out there so people are kind of coming to you? Is it an audition process similar to like an actor?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of things. And I think to be successful in voiceover, you really need to be able to get opportunities from a lot of different places, which is something that I learned very quickly as I kind of entered into the professional world of voiceover in 2020. So different than having a theater agent or an on-camera agent. Usually they just have one. So my sister's an equity actor in New York, but she has an agent in LA, and that's it. Sure. In voiceover, a lot of us have agents in every major market. So some people have 8-10 agents. It's crazy. Yeah. And everybody's sending you opportunities. So I have agents in New York, LA, Atlanta, and Minneapolis. In February, this year I signed with ACM Talent, which is a talent management company, which I'm super excited about. I do a lot of direct marketing, a ton of direct marketing and networking. I'm on casting sites that I pay memberships for so I can get auditions. And then you're right. My name has sort of, gotten out there at this point, and people often email me and give me auditions directly or just hand me projects. It happened this morning just before we met. I had someone reach out to me and do 2 healthcare commercials for them, and I'd worked with them before, and they just said, here's the script and just give it back to me whenever you're ready. And that was it. So
there you go.
It's a constant hustle, and the more successful you get, the more the hustle increases. I used to think, I'd get to this point and I'd be able to relax. It's like, no, we're going to kick it into overdrive, and it just keeps growing and growing. And right now it's a beast. We're in the very busy time of year. And so there's so many opportunities. It's great. There's more opportunities than you, me, everybody we know, and everybody they know could do. There's just so much opportunity in voiceover.
All right, so here's my questions. I know why this is my busy time of the year. I'm a CPA. I'm a tax accountant. You can see all the files in the corner here. Why is this a busy time of year for your industry?
I think it's busy because we were coming off the holidays in the beginning of the year. So a lot of advertisers had wrapped up their holiday campaigns. And as we came back from the new year, I think one of the first things they ramped up for that was really big was probably the Super Bowl. And now there's a lot of advertising because spring is here. So a lot of brands are changing their messages, and it will be pretty busy through the beginning of summer. And then as summer gets here and their kids get out of school or people just want to take vacations, it slows down a little bit. And then ramps up again big time through mid to late summer through the fall because we're back in the groove for holiday, and then it kind of slows down again. So for me, I've noticed 2 really busy times of year and 2 slower times of year. And that's something that I needed to start planning for and adapting to, because my first year full time in voiceover, I was not prepared at all for the slow times. And it was a hard lesson I needed to learn. And now I try to help other people, with that as well.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go with this being like I said, somewhat of a business podcast. Is there's the other side of it where it's not a regular W-2 type job where you're getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. So you might get 5 things coming in now, but May might be, nothing. So,
yes, that's and I'm glad that you brought that up because my dad was an educator. Both my parents were educators. My whole family are teachers. I know my sister and I are just off doing our own thing. But
so
anyway,
family,
you know what I mean? But my dad said to me when I first went full-time in voiceover in the pandemic, he said, I can't imagine like not knowing if you're going to get paid. Like I can't imagine not knowing when your next paycheck is coming. And I said, yeah, no, it's definitely very stressful. And then in the end of the year, I just get like a flood of 1099s. You know, in Harry Potter, when all the letters from Hogwarts come through the fireplace, like that's me with the 1099s. They just come, like by the dozens, some people, by the hundreds. And then you're trying to sit with your accountant and say, let's sift through this mess.
See, we like, just so you know, we like the clients better who sift through the mess before they come in.
I'm trying.
So public service announcement for you, for your accountant who I don't know, sift through it first. Make his life a little easier, especially this late in the game.
It's on my list of things to do. I've got my stack. I've got my manila envelope. I'm going to write it all out. I've got my spreadsheets going. I'm learning. I'm trying to get, better at it. This, that entrepreneurial side, that business owner side, Yeah.
So this might be a stupid question, but I ask a lot of those. So when you do voiceover work or you're voicing a cartoon or a commercial, is it always Gina's voice or are there alterations? And if there are alterations, is it something that you kind of try and add to the character, or is it something you're kind of instructed from someone? Hey, I need you to be a little more chipper, or I need you to be a little more subdued, or that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of times I self-direct, so I don't meet with anybody. I book the job, I record it, and I send it off, and they might give me feedback, but we don't really meet about it. But then there's a lot of times, especially in the higher level or more high-profile jobs, where I do have a director, and they give me feedback and adjust what I'm saying or doing. And then there are times where, most times I would say I'm just speaking in my normal voice, even as a lot of characters in video games. I tend to play a lot of, tough women who fight and are gun wielding. I guess like the husk in my voice, I guess, which I'm afraid of everything.
All right, stop. Let's go. Come on, give me a sample right now. So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Give me a sample of a gun wielding video game character.
So my gosh, I'm, unlike most performing people, I'm always so shy about it, but I'll give an example. So, there's a VR game out called Survival Nation, and I play the head of the survival camp. And so when you get to the camp, it's so cool. My character's name is Riley. And when you get there, you go up to me and I say something well, you finally made it. Though I thought it would take you longer to get here. Before we get started, equip this and go kill some zombies outside. Come see me when you're done. And that's kind of like my tough voice telling people what to do. And so it's pretty cool because throughout the game, you come and visit me. I tell you where to go or what to do next. And that's been such a cool role. And then, I'd say one of my favorites was playing Sarah Kaysen in The Walking Dead Last Mile, which, was so cool. It was part of Facebook Gaming last, year, and people could watch episodes that were animated and then play sort of mini games or make decisions in the game. My character got killed because the audience accidentally killed me, and then they were like, no. So it was kind of cool. It was like choose your own adventure video game animated series. But that's kind of the roles I tend to play. And I'm basically speaking in my own voice, maybe a little tougher and with an attitude. And then there are times here and there where I do a character voice. I might do a little gnome voice, or I don't know, something in a fantasy type video game, or like a little boy voice or girl voice or something like that for something animated. So it's really fun. And I feel like every day is different and I never know what I'm going to do. But some of those decisions I make myself, and some are sort of given to me either in the directions when I'm auditioning or as we get into the session.
Sure. So when you're doing a video game, they might give you 50 different sayings to say that are somehow rolled into the game based upon what's happening in the game. So
yes,
go kill a zombie or go do this. So it's kind of like, I remember growing up, and you probably can appreciate this, before the video games were like they were now, there were those books. And remember, you'd get to the end and there'd be a choice in a chapter.
Yes, choose your own adventure.
Yeah, yes, that's what it's called. Yes,
I loved it.
Yeah, so it's kind of that same thing. So whichever I choose, you're obviously going to be giving me a new message.
Yes, exactly. That happens quite a lot in video games. And some of the games I do, there's a couple different ways I do video games. Some of them are dialogue driven where I'm in a scene with somebody else and I don't often record with them. So until I see it in the game, like with The Walking Dead, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know what they sounded like or what was going to happen. Sure. Sometimes I do games where I have a game coming out later this year that's a card game, and I voice several different cards, sort of like Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone. So you play a card, and the card has a voice line. So it's more like it's called like voice packs, where you just have individual lines where you're not talking to anybody. And then I have games where I only make sounds. So, for example, there was a game that just came out that was pretty popular called Wolong Fallen Dynasty, and you choose a character in the beginning of the game, and you can choose the voice that you want for the fighting sounds, and I make all the fighting sounds. And then I have a game out later this year where all I do is die. My character just dies in so many different ways.
So you do know me well enough by now that you should know the next thing I'm going to ask. I need some examples of those sounds.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, okay. So like
you're going to regret coming on here, I think.
I know. I like my face turns red. You know, it's so funny. Like when I was little, I always wanted to get up in front of everybody. Like my parents would have guests over and I was like, everybody sit down. I'm going to perform. But as I got older, I got, way more shy. But anyway, so, in Wolong, you might have like a sword and so you're fighting. And so a lot of the sounds might be like, okay, so it might be like, or something like that. So that's hilarious when I'm just screaming in my apartment like that.
Right, it probably makes more sense when there's a character you're watching actually doing something that goes along with that.
Yeah, the nice thing about Wolong is it was dubbed, so I actually got to see a lot of the footage in the session. So I got to see the fight sequence. It was actually pretty challenging because, they would say, okay, so she does a light attack, a heavy attack, she dodges, she rolls, she jumps, and then she thrusts her sword. So, there's like 5 or 6 actions in a row, and every one of those actions needs a sound. And they, maybe play it for me once and be like, okay, ready? I'm like, I think so. Like, hold on, wait. I'm like, it's light, and then it's heavy, and then it's dodge, and then, so that was pretty tough. And with the other game that's coming out later this year, there was no footage, so it was just descriptions like, you are being thrown off a cliff. You drowned in a swamp of toxic sludge. You were impaled and, you died. So that's all I was given. And then I didn't meet with anybody. I just sent them my files and I was like, I hope this sounds like somebody dying. I don't know.
Well, I guess it went well, so it's good.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I have a bunch of games that are coming out this year. And the hard thing about VoiceOver sometimes is we sign a lot of NDAs, so we can't talk about, we can sort of talk kind of about things, but not really.
Sure.
And sometimes, like, I have a lot of exciting things coming out, but they're not out yet. And I always want to say on social media, I swear I'm doing stuff. It might not look like it right now, but I swear there's like,
there could be a 6 or 9 month
video game. Yeah, just give me a few months. I usually have something to show, but sometimes those really exciting things, I'm like, last year I voiced about 250 projects. So I was lucky that probably once a week or so, something at least was public facing that I could pull off of YouTube or the client sent it to me and I was able to share it. But yeah, there's so many games. I think I have 3 or 4, pretty exciting ones out this year that I'm like, let's go. I want to tell everybody.
Let's get going.
And I love gaming. It's my favorite. That's one of my favorite hobbies outside of VoiceOver. Actually, if not, no, it is my favorite.
Okay. So you're a gamer? Okay.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
And people are usually surprised to find out, like, this woman in her 40s, like, she likes Call of Duty or League of Legends and Valorant and Fortnite. And, I'm like, yes, I love, Magic. I played Magic the Gathering quite a bit in shops prior to the pandemic. Like, so whenever I'm not doing VoiceOver, I'm almost always playing video games. I love it. And I love voicing them. So it's like almost research. But I discovered competitive games about, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And I don't know what happened. Before that, I was just like a Tetris Mario Kart player. And then somebody was like, let's try Call of Duty. And I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, the extent of my video game experience, probably like you just said, was like 3, 4 years ago when my kids were younger. We had a Wii.
Yeah.
So there I am sitting there,
Wii
driving my steering wheel in my hand.
Yes. Yeah. Mario Kart. Yeah, my son and I played a ton growing up. And me being a young mom, it was really, nice. We grew up, liking a lot of the same things. And even when he got into like Pokemon, one of the first games he played was like Pokemon Sapphire. And he was like, Mom, you want to try it? And I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh, wait, I love this. So then I played, a ton of Pokemon games since. And it was him that introduced me to it. We played World of Warcraft together. So yeah, I love video games so much.
Oh, I can tell that seems to be your passion. So I know you do also some corporate stuff as well. And obviously
Yeah.
that's good. That pays the bills. But obviously I think your passion is on the video game side. Is that fair to
Yeah,
say?
yeah. And I'm always, the funny thing is, like, I'm always happy no matter what. I book all kinds of things. Like, there's a company, Pods Moving and Storage. And if you call and you are doing something, you're going to move, something for your business, it's my voice on the other end of the line when you call Pods Moving and Storage. Or, I'll do I just did a training about human research subjects and the protocols for that, if the government needs to investigate, a lab or something. So I did that. So it's like, you never know what every day is going to be. Not everything is the most exciting thing, but I always feel really happy whenever I book something. It's a very hard competitive industry, very competitive, and even more oversaturated since the pandemic, because everybody sort of got into it and people realized, wait a minute, I could do this from home. So it was like the floodgates open. So I'm always like on my toes trying to book the next thing.
So Burger King, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, Burger King was really fun. I did a crypto campaign for them. It was like a random giveaway. It was like, if you bought, I don't know what it was. It was like, if you bought a Whopper, you got crypto or something. And they made these series of videos, these ads online that I voiced, and they were very fun to do. I was also the voice of Xfinity Rewards for a year and a half. And so exclusively in the telecommunications field, I was their voice, and I couldn't voice for any competitors. And then most recently, I voiced a Vista Print's holiday campaign, and should be back again with them soon.
All right. So it's exciting stuff. And then in the midst of all this, you now have a Positive Vibe Studio, or Positive Voices Studio. Sorry.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So, Positive Voices, I actually opened in January of 2020. Hilarious. As a vocal performance studio for kids. I was teaching a lot of kids and teens in my hometown. I had almost 100 students, and we had this whole plan to be out in the community. We were going to perform at like cancer benefits and Little League opening days and, at senior centers. And of course, 2 months in, everything shut down and it got real scary real quick. So the first thing I did with the business was transition everything online and start working with the kids online. And the minute I could get back with them, we started running classes outdoors. So for the second half of 2020, I saw them every single week, multiple times per week. We did 5 outdoor performances. It was very challenging. And in the middle of all that, I was sort of trying to transition over to VoiceOver. And I said to the kids, what if I taught you how to do VoiceOver? And I'll teach you online, and we'll do Zoom classes, and I'll, whatever. So I started teaching the kids, and some of them really took to it and started booking with Walmart, Target, Nintendo, PBS, and 2 of them booked a movie, and it was like, oh my gosh. So it was really, crazy how things transitioned over, because I had never planned to be a full-time voice actor necessarily. I thought it might be nice, but I didn't plan on it. And the business wasn't even geared towards that. But I adapted the entire business, rethought it as a, recording studio, had a space for a while, but it didn't really make sense. So, I just operate totally virtually. I still work with some of those kids or stay in touch with them. And now I work with kids, teens, and adults and do all kinds of educational programs. And I taught and directed for many years in theater beforehand and won awards for it in Connecticut, which was very nice. So I tried to take all of that experience and just reimagine the business in a way that fit me and that could help a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, which is kind of what your website talks about, because I think your career path, being in radio and then having to pivot a little bit, whether it was on purpose or accidental, then having to pivot again with COVID and so forth. I know you kind of talk about, fighting through slumps in your professional career, staying positive. Like, how were you able to maintain that through all these transitions?
I don't know necessarily. I think that I've turned into a pretty resilient person, which is funny because I struggle with a lot of anxiety in life, but when my back's against the wall, I'm able to kind of push through. And I think that kind of started just from being a young mom. I got pregnant at 17 and had my son at 18 and raised him as a single mom with my family's help. And so that's sort of where it all kind of started. But I feel like, whenever things were either not going my way in my career or I wanted to make a shift, I just was able to find a way to do that. And I'm always trying to help other people do that as well. And sometimes those setbacks professionally happen within the business itself. Sometimes it happens on the outside. So like in May of 2021, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune liver disease, and I had a lot of health problems that year. And so I was like trying to deal with that and my career. And So, I just try to help other people too and give them, I'm really big on actionable steps that people can take to advance their careers or to get out of slumps, because sometimes I think people meet with coaches and they either just say like, good job, or they give them feedback about certain things, but they don't really tell them what to do next. And so that's my big thing, is just trying to find actionable steps to get out of tough situations, I think.
Yeah. And you've had them now, what I'm learning, both professionally and in your personal life.
Yeah.
And obviously fighting through the personal stuff as you're trying to grow this business. And it sounds like they were simultaneous. Like your business was growing as you were diagnosed with this condition.
It was so frustrating because I feel like I was really starting to take off, but I had shingles in the beginning of 2021, and I felt super tired, a lot of brain fog. And I was like, what in the world is going on? And just as my career was hitting like I think a pretty, high level, I get this diagnosis that's like, you have this autoimmune liver disease. There is no cure. It's progressive. It could lead to you needing a transplant. We're going to try to stop it with medication. I was like, what in the world is going on? Because before this, I'd go to the doctor and get a physical, and they were like, you're fine. Nothing ever. And out of the blue, it was like, your vitamin D levels are, 6. It's almost 0. You have a very weakened immune system. Yes, you're tired and you have this brain fog, and, voiceover requires a high attention to detail, and it's very difficult for me. So my sister came on and started working with me, because her theater auditions are, farther and fewer between than what I do. Mm-hmm. So in between, she works with me, and she has the highest attention to detail. It is like in her nature. So it worked out really well for me. But yeah, it was like, this hits me just as I'm really starting to hit it. So, that definitely knocked me back a bit, but actually, I was very fortunate, and the medication sort of put everything, kind of back, my liver numbers back the way that they were. And right now it's just sort of in this like holding pattern. But at any time the numbers could rise, the medication could stop working. So for a person with anxiety who doesn't like uncertainty, this was not the news I wanted to hear at all.
Think about where you are now. So when you talk about the positivity, you not being of that mindset,
honestly,
that could have totally derailed your career path.
You're right, though, because I think that trying to maintain that positive mindset and just pushing through and saying, we're going to keep moving forward. And, if something comes up, we'll deal with it as it happens. But now I'm more successful than I've ever been. And honestly, my health overall right now, the numbers are all looking pretty good. I cannot get my vitamin D numbers up for my life. But other than that, things are going, very well. But I do think it is that, that resilience, that positivity, and just, not letting it get me down. And I tell people a lot. I just did an interview with a podcast called Vox Talk, which is run by voices.com. And I was saying, you bring everything into the recording booth with you. You bring the good, the bad, the ugly, if you're having a stressful day, whatever challenges you went through in your life, because a lot of voiceover is about being yourself. So I think over the last few years, especially, I've learned to embrace even the hard times, because I need those experiences to be able to believably do a lot of the voiceover that I need to do. So I've tried to embrace the tough times, even though in the moment, sometimes it doesn't feel that good.
Well, listen, if you haven't had the tough times, how can you possibly tell someone to go kill zombies? So
exactly. Exactly. I need to help them through the challenge of killing the zombies, because I myself have been.
Right. You have your own zombie right now. Your autoimmune disease is your zombie.
Yes, I've had my share of zombies in my life.
Right. You see, I mean, if you've just lived your life, walking through a field of flowers, you have no credibility to kill a zombie.
You need to know about it. And, that's an interesting thing that you brought up, because for a long time, my sister and I directed teenagers, and we would do certain shows sometimes, or songs. And it would be like, you're trying to explain something about them to, about life. And it's like, they're 14 and you're like, you get divorced and it's like, you're in your 50s and you're just trying to start a new life. And like, that's what this song is about. And it's like, they're like, I'm 14. Like, I'm just a freshman in high school,
Yes.
So it's like, but as they get older and they have those life experiences, they're able to bring those, those into theater. And I think now, having lived a lot of life and being through a lot of ups and downs, it's actually really helped me in my voiceover career. People are often surprised to find out how much of voiceover is about being yourself and bringing your own perspectives. Like, they always think we're doing like crazy voices. People will come to me and be like, I can do like a really great Porky Pig impression. I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do with that information.
That's
like,
not me.
No, it's just like, it doesn't really come up as much as people on the, outside looking in might think.
Well, I think when people think voiceovers, they don't think about the commercial they're watching. I think most people think about a cartoon, or they think about a movie, or, they'll think about, one of those Disney movies, or these, and the voice of a princess or something like that. And obviously,
right. They don't think like, oh, I'm shopping in Whole Foods and there's the announcement in store that's like,
correct.
bananas are on sale. It's like, that's voiceover, let's training for work, like I said, you call pods for business and there's my voice. It's all, that's what we're doing all day, every day. Yeah, we have
every
cool
time I
ones.
call someone, my call may be recorded
That's
for
voiceover.
quality control purposes. That's you.
That's voiceover.
That's
yeah,
voiceover.
Exactly. Although we're trying to fight against the rise
Can I get a job doing that? Was that pretty
good? Yes. You know how many, sometimes
field.
I'll talk to podcast hosts and they're like, wait, can I do this? I'm like, yes.
I should do this.
You know what's funny? I met a great woman. Her name is Joan. And she had a podcast. She has a podcast called Side Hustle Hero. And she'd always kind of thought about doing voiceover. And in the middle of the episode, we were talking and I was like, you should do voiceover. Well, now I coach her and she just had me on the show to talk about how the side hustle turned into a full-time career. And what ended up happening accidentally was we started working together. She started auditioning for things. I started helping her make clips and demos, and here we are. But when people ask me, can I do this? I mean, whether or not they have this interest because of podcasting or just people I meet in life, I'm always like, yes, 100%. Yes, you can do it. And it sounds like, no, I can't do it. I'm like, I swear to God, you can do it.
I imagine you had to invest in building a studio or some kind of whatever, at least good microphone system in your house.
Yes, I did. And I used to just have a USB microphone and I didn't realize how bad it sounded until I started hearing everybody else around me with their professional setups. And I was like, oh, I sound like garbage. So I started, investing in myself. But when I first went full time, I had about $1,000 in my bank account and like no backup plan. So people would often say to me as I'm coaching them or when I speak in workshops or things like that, they'll say, oh, like, so, how much money did you have saved when you went full time? I'm like, zero. They're like, what was your backup plan? Didn't have one. What was in your savings account? Nothing. Like I had nothing. I bought a decent microphone and an audio interface that the mic plugs into. So it's an upgrade from a USB mic. And then I joined voices.com. So between the mic, the interface and the membership is about $1,000. And within about 2 weeks, I booked my first job on that site that paid $500. So I was like, okay, great. We're moving. And then it was just from there. Every time I started making a good amount of money, I was like, time for, let's upgrade that microphone. Let's take a new workshop. Let's make a demo, and I have been, I still constantly investing in myself to try to push myself forward. And it's great for write-offs.
There you go. But see, now you're thinking not as a voiceover person, but you're thinking as a business owner.
Yes, I am.
Business owners make money. You have to decide, what am I putting in my pocket and what am I putting back into the business? You
got to spend money to make money. I had a background in, my degree is in marketing and I worked in marketing as well. And that's what I would tell, companies or my, a boss that I worked for. I'm like, we got to spend money here. Like we can't expect customers to come through the door or call us if we're not spending money. And, in voiceover, it's like you're a one woman or man, person operation, or maybe, in the case of me and my sister, a 2-person operation. But it's like, I have to do it. I have to invest back in myself. And a lot of people are very hesitant to spend the money sometimes. But it's like, you just kind of have to weigh the pros and the cons and what the potential return on investment is. And so, I tell people I took $1,000, about 2 years ago. And I turned it into a 6-figure career. And it's like, imagine if I was sitting at the time going, I can't spend $1,000. Like, okay, well, you wouldn't be where you are today, voicing all these amazing things and meeting so many great people and speaking to people all over the world, all because I spent $1,000 and said, let me just take that chance and see what happens. I could not have imagined. I was just trying to pay my bills during the pandemic. And here we are.
So last question I was thinking about. So you're a gamer.
Yes.
So you like to play games. Are you into playing any of the games that you're a part of? So like, are you playing a game where you're now giving yourself advice as you go into a new...
That is so funny because I was, when I was in the recording session the other day for this card game coming out, we were joking. So I voiced, I think, 4 cards in the game and they were saying, oh, we want to bring you back and have you voice more. And I was joking, I'm going to make a deck that's just me. So every time I play a card, it's just my voice. And they said, what happens when you play against a deck that is also you and you lose to yourself? I was like, wow, that's a really good point. But there's a game coming out, in less than a month that I'm definitely going to be playing that I'm in. So yeah, it's very surreal, as a person who loves video games, to play games and be like, that is my voice coming out of that character. it's, it's been one of the best parts of VoiceOver, that and the community of people that I've gotten to meet, I think, are my two favorite things. But yeah, I'll never get sick of hearing myself in a video game. And I've got aspirations for my video game career. I've got games and companies and developers I've got my eye on, and I'm like, I will get into one of your games. I know it. I'm convinced of it. So I'm just going to keep pushing.
I know some TV will be interviews with TV stars, and they say they can't watch their work because they're too critical of their performance. And I remember watching an interview with a bunch of the people, the cast of Friends, and I think it was Lisa Kudrow who made a comment. When I watch it, I just say to myself, the rest of you are so funny. And I look at myself saying, like, I'm like the weakest link, like, for lack of a better word, when in fact she's just as funny, if not funnier than the rest of them. When you hear yourself, are you critical, or are you like, wow, I'm doing a good job?
I mean, it's half and half. I don't really have a problem listening to myself, probably because I need to listen to myself so much when I'm editing. Sure. So I've kind of gotten used to it. And then radio, I've just been such a long time of always hearing myself that it doesn't really bother me. But I am very critical of myself. I'm like, oh, why did you say it like that? Or, I'll get a new demo or a new project out and everyone's like, oh my God, it's amazing. And I'm like, I don't know why I did that, or I definitely could have said that better. But we're always harder on ourselves than anybody else is anyway. So I try to be nicer to myself in my older age.
There you go. Well, listen, it's impressive. You especially started with $1,000. You turn this into as you said, a very lucrative field, and you're not resting now. You're going to continue to grow this thing.
Oh yeah. It's even busier now than it's ever been. So busy. I can't even put it into words.
Well, knock on wood, that continues for you. And knock on wood, your autoimmune disease stays in check.
Thank you.
And so forth. How can people, find you or follow you on either social media platforms or anything like that?
Yeah. So you can find me on social media, just Gina Scarpa, or my website, which is ginascarpa.com. And my studio website is positivevoicesct.com. And we have a great roster of like kids, teens, adults that voice things. We do audio production and writing as well. So if companies are, looking to put out some content or some ads or whatever, we help people with that as well. Awesome.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time. It was fun talking to you.
This was
Learned
great.
A lot about it. I think it's the coolest thing that you're doing. I'm jealous, especially the next few weeks of tax season. I wish I was doing what you were doing instead of what I'm doing.
Well, I was not expecting to perform today, but thanks for having and enjoying my fighting noises and my.
Well, thanks for not asking me any tax questions. So there you go. I appreciate that.
I
also.
have so many.
I'm sure you do. Well, we'll do that
Thank
offline.
You. Yeah, thank
Gina,
you so much.
An absolute pleasure. Enjoyed it, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you too.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On-Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. If you have a question related to this episode or have a request for what you would like to hear, please email us at marketing@adeptuscpas.com. You can also find us at adeptuscpas.com online or follow us at Adeptus on social media. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.